in modern society, there's just, I feel like this cultural programming that if you want to have a more expanded experience of reality, you have to like accumulate more things. You have to think your way into a new way. Especially like in the personal development world, it's like you got to think different to have a different life. And there's that top-down important perspective, right? But then it's also freeing. There's that quote that, it's much easier to act yourself into a new way of thinking than to think yourself into a new way of acting.
Yeah.
And I would just love for you to share more about how we can use our physiology to free our psychology. Because a lot of times we're kind of just fed the other narrative, but through simple breath, touch, sound, movement, like these things really, I feel like, at least for me in my own personal journey, are such quick state changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's another, I'll try to avoid being excessively quotatious, but there's a quote I wrote down recently from Bessel van der Kolk. He said the first step in releasing or physical self-awareness is the first step in releasing the tyranny of the past. Physical self-awareness, like realizing that your physical body is the remnants of all of the imprints of your past. Like every individual, you are a book. And every experience that you've had, including just maybe like passive subconscious experiences, environmental experiences, hereditary experiences, things, ancestry, lineage stuff, it's all infused in the way that you breathe, and the way that you move, and the way that you use your facial expressions and postural patterns and all of that. Like your story informs and animates your movement. And a big part of that, like breath is like the bridge to the mind, you could say, or it's the bridge to the nervous system. Yeah. That's because, when you are afraid, for example, or, you're panicked, like what happens to your breath?
Becomes very shallow, mouth breathing usually.
Yeah, it's probably going to go up.
Chest,
it's going to, all of a sudden your clavicles start to raise and your shoulders start to raise. And, the upper lobes of the lungs are quite small and conical in comparison to the lower lobes. They're like much more full and robust. And so when you get that nasal breath and you start to bring that breath down into the horizontal, like the outside of the ribs, and you really expand open, you're getting this really full, robust filling of all of the alveoli and all the little sacs that allow you to circulate oxygen through your body. But to do that, your body has to feel like it has the time to do that. If it doesn't have the time to breathe in such a expansive way, it's going to go to pull the emergency cord, which is super efficient. You pull the emergency cord and you start mouth breathing, and you kind of like get hard and fast, like up into here.
Surviving.
You're surviving. Yeah. Yeah, and so you start to shunt blood away from the organs, away from the viscera. It's going to go out into the periphery, into your limbs, because you're getting ready to either run the freak out of the room or fight somebody. And then eventually, if you don't have any of those options, then you'll go into freeze as well, which is like another potential path. So your blood starts to move out of the viscera, goes into the peripheral muscles to get ready to fight or run. And it's a really beautiful system. Like it's like an amazing adaptive system to put you into a temporary survival state. The issue comes when you don't actually understand that you can regulate and modulate your own autonomic nervous system through your breath. And there's a very good chance that you've actually been chronically stuck in a fight-flight state, maybe since you were 3 years old. And that really scary thing happened to you, or you were 12 years old, and everybody pointed at you and laughed in elementary school, and suddenly you learned that, oh my God, the world's not safe. At a deep core intrinsic level, this world is not safe. I'm a guest in this world, and it is not safe, and I am not home. How do you breathe when you walk into a home that you feel kind of like, ooh, I think the host of the house, I don't think they really want me to be here? How do you breathe? Like if you probably breathe a little more shallow, you might kind of be like, you walk like very lightly, you're very like, ooh, your shoulders might raise up. You're like, ooh, I'm like not landing. But the moment that you feel love from the host, you feel love from your friends, love from the tribe, love from your family, love from yourself, suddenly you like, oh, what does your breath do? Oh, I thought you hated me. You don't hate me? He's like, no, I love you. I'm just avoidant. I'm like, oh. Physiologically, your body responds. It says, okay, I can take a breath. So now all of a sudden your whole physiology and your neurochemistry and all of the different things, your hormones, everything starts to come into that translation of ease. And like, okay, I'm going to downregulate cortisol and norepinephrine and all the catecholamines and the things that kind of put me into this place of like ready to go. I'm going to just drop in. And now suddenly I go out of this really focused, myopic, shark-like vision, and I kind of just like, I like take in the whole room. Oh, and now I'm taking in the whole room. Now I'm opening myself up for creativity. So as opposed to having just one objective-based get or done type thing, like businessman, sharp businessman vibe, suddenly I come out and I'm like, like what deal? I don't care about the deal. I just want to love you.
Yeah.
I just want to hang out. I just want to vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a specific physiological translation of a person that is in the state of fight, flight, stress, focused, get or done, get the action. There's a physiological postural expression of that. And then there's a corollary physiological postural expression of a person that feels safe. They feel like there's nothing that needs to be done. It's just time to be. It's just time to have fun. It's just time to play. Mm-hmm. Very distinctly different physiological translations of both of those states. And you can start to augment, just like you said with the quote that you had mentioned of how do you say that quote again?
Easier to act your way into a new way of thinking than think yourself into a new way of acting.
Yeah, so that's like Sir William James. He's known as the father of modern psychology. He was big on that. He was like one of the prominent thinkers in that realm, like a bottom-up perspective psychology. And that would be an example of that, where you're like, okay, interesting. I feel anxious. I feel unloved. I feel disconnected. I feel afraid. And I have this physiological expression of that. You can see it in the imprint of my breath. You can see it in the way that I have chronic tension in my wrists, and my jaw is always tight. I'm always kind of cracking my neck. So what if I'm trying to sort my thoughts out? It's not working. It's too much. I'm trying to sort these relationships out. I'm trying to sort my business out. I'm like, I am flailing. Like, I'm not able to get it.
You're trying to figure out your life from a completely limited version of you.
Yeah, you're reaching out to sort out to pull the levers of your internal physiology and biology, and I would say even like soul and spirit. Mm-hmm. And so there is the availability and option to actually go within and say, interesting, what if I manually adjust and I do a little bit of like soft tissue work on my traps? And they were up here for the last while. What if I just do like some massage here? And I just kind of open up through that space. What if I maybe start to bring my hands down to my ribs, my lower ribs, and I just bring that breath horizontally out to the sides. I start filling up the lower lobes of my lungs. What if I emphasize an exhalation instead of an inhalation? Because I've been chronically stuck in this fight, flight, like inhalatory kind of like shock breath pattern, and I haven't had a full exhalation in 6 weeks. What if I just manually say, I shake it out a little bit, and I do all that weird new age hippie stuff that's like kind of annoying to be around, but it's actually kind of legit.
Right. No, I mean, it's been branded as that because in a society that is the complete opposite, it looks weird or hippie-like. But what's weird or abnormal about giving your human body the expression that it wants? Like, that's, in my opinion, the most human, natural aspect of what we can do. And I just think it's so strange that we're not taught from a young age that breathing in through each nostril has different effects on our sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system. Like, the various things of how the manual system of how our body works is just not shared. It's not taught. But once you have that awareness, then you can actually bring those tools into everything you do in life, and you become a more skilled navigator at this wild sea.